everyone. My name is Zaina Sumi, and I am a staff librarian in Acquisitions and Collection Development at Marshall University Library. And I am also a graduate student in our School Library Media program. Today I would like to discuss some possible tips to assist in searching the Library of Congress online catalog, specifically for books for children. You might be accustomed to doing your book searches in WorldCat or the Novelist Plus database, but the LOC differs in several ways, and I hope I have some tips that will help you do some searches and find the books you want. I confess I really struggled, even after spending time reading tips and talking to librarians. I just wasn't getting the hang of it, and I wasn't finding the breadth of list that I was expecting. And I thought I knew what I was doing, but I ended up writing to the librarian. There's an Ask a Librarian tool, and I utilized that and received a very detailed response. So I encourage you to use that offer of assistance if you find yourself stuck. They sent several links that were helpful, and then as I did more searching on my own, I found some other links that I hope will help you. So when I started my search, I was looking for a juvenile collection, and I did find that under researchers. The resources for children's literature is what I found in this Children's Literature Center. And while there are all kinds of helpful links here, there is really not a catalog search. This is more of support for teachers and researchers for using the collection, but it doesn't really link to the online catalog in such a way that we could find it right here. So back to our home page here with the Library of Congress. I wanted to show you some of the links that the librarian sent to me. She sent this introduction to children's subject headings, which is very comprehensive and helpful, especially if you are really deep into the program or are interested in cataloging. Also, this descriptive cataloging for juvenile works. Actually, this is one I think I might have found. No, she sent this link. But I really spent time looking here and found this intended audience. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to some MARC records. This is a link about the program of cataloging children and young adults material, and if you're struggling with cataloging, this might encourage you, or if you love cataloging, you might love this, so I encourage you to check that out. Of course, she sent this helpful tool about searching and browsing, and this link as well with keyword searches. Well, we're going to come back to the home page and go to our online catalog here up in the right corner, and then search the online catalog. And then I encourage you to try, I think the best strategy is with the advanced search, which is where I initially failed. Okay, this is the advanced search page, and you'll see there are several options. One thing I would recommend is checking out this advanced search tip, which I had done. Things you might want to note, like you should remove any dashes in the ISBN if you're pasting ISBN in. Uppercase and lowercase doesn't matter, but you can review that. You'll see that you have lots of choices here, and that might have been what threw me off. Part of my issue was that I was putting the term juvenile and then a separate category of fiction. I think that's part of what was blocking my efforts to find a good listing of titles. But we're going to make an attempt here. Let's just choose something broad like friendship. I'm going to leave our choice as all of these, but you have a choice of doing any of these or as a phrase, and I had some success with using the as a phrase choice too in a couple of my searches. We're going to leave that keyword. We have the Boolean choices here to do and, or not, but I'm going to leave that as and. And like I said, juvenile fiction together as one phrase. Another choice is young adult, I think I did, young adult literature and juvenile literature. Those are choices that seem to work better than just the term juvenile fiction, or juvenile and then fiction as a separate search. And then also the librarian recommended using a subject search for juvenile, and that has worked for me as well, but I'm going to leave this as keyword. And then another great tip that she gave me is using this code that they add to several of the MARC records, the LCAC. And then I would recommend adding limits as well, because you're casting a very wide net if you don't. But you've got a choice for date range, but I'm going to leave that for now. I will point out that general collections is really the best way that I have found to search for the juvenile books. Scrolling down, if you're used to using some other databases, there is a children's literature grouping, but this links back to that literature center. And what I found in all my searches with this collection is it's primarily research-based reference works, not very much written specifically for children. So if you're looking to build your classroom collection, if you're a teacher, or your library, if you're a school librarian or any librarian, I would recommend choosing instead the general collections. And then I didn't find that having the place of publication made a great impact on my search, but definitely choose book if you want to save some time, and choose English, because I was finding some books in French and that was cool, but to save some time I would recommend choosing English. And then we'll do our search. Okay, so our search yielded 1,517 titles, which is much better than I did when I was first trying. And what I was finding was that I was finding content that was for adults and not for juveniles, but it looks like we're seeing a lot of PZ7s when those call numbers are showing, which is juvenile. And I don't see that we're getting a lot of content for adults. So it looks like a successful search, but it's a big search. So if you're looking to update your collection, you might want to go with a shorter date range. So one way you could do that is to come back to refine your search, and then I was doing a 5-year range, 2014 to 2019, and we'll resubmit that search. Okay, that brought our search down to 626 titles, which is much more like it. But another thing I would recommend is if you see a title that really strikes you as exactly the kind of book you're looking for, so we'll just choose this Crazy Clues book here. Select that and you can see some of the terms that were connected. You can see that it highlights your keyword searches, and of course you have choices then to request it and so on. But for myself, I like to look at the MARC tags because I work with MARC records every day. And for me, this is a little faster way to see. There's that LCAC designation that they've got in the 042 field. And you can see all those choices again. For some reason, for me, that's a little clearer. And then you can see the search navigation tab drop down. We can refine our search or we can return to our title list. Okay, we've come back out to the advanced search, and I wanted to show you something else that I found helpful. Is instead of the LCAC, another thing that I tried was using the Boolean choice not, and saying not nonfiction. When I was having trouble finding things that were specifically fiction, for some reason that really did help weed it down. And let's look at young adult fiction and see if we see anything different. And we're going to leave everything the same and see how that search goes. Okay, our search yielded 80 titles, so that's good, and we know that these are all published within the last 5 years, so that's a nice listing. And you can print that, save that, email it like you can in other databases. Okay, so we've returned to our advanced search, and now maybe we'd like to find some nonfiction. And I went ahead and loaded this up. Let's try looking for immigration titles and juvenile literature. So we did a subject of immigration. Juvenile literature is our keyword and not fiction, and our other limits as before. And we can see that that search yielded 180 titles, so that's a good search, I think, but that's pretty broad, and we could narrow those dates down because I had no date limitation on that, but I still think that's a good finding. Okay, I returned to our advanced search. I wanted to show one other thing, and that is, let's do the search that's school as a subject. Juvenile fiction is our next choice with the keyword, and then something I love because I'm what I call publisher driven, because I've worked with books for many, many years and I've gotten some favorites, so I'm sure you know Scholastic Inc. And let's see if we can find some general books for juvenile fiction from Scholastic. Okay, and that search yielded 84 titles. So if there is a publisher that you love, like I love Scholastic and some other ones, like I like Capstone a lot, Candlewick, so you get familiar with those. That's a good way for you to search for titles too. I spent quite a while poring over the descriptive cataloging guide and particularly looking at intended audience, the 521 field in the MARC record, and I did some searches. This corresponds in the advanced search to the note field. So if we go back to the advanced search and our drop down, you can select note. That should correspond to the 521, and I tried things like putting age 12 up, age 10 up, and I was able to find material that way. I also used the term illustrated, so if I knew I'm looking for picture books, or if I wanted images, that actually yielded quite a lot too, so I'm glad that that worked. What else did I want to show you really quickly? And then looking at the classification of PZ, this I spent quite a while looking through and testing with the browse function. So if we come to the catalog search and try browse, we can select call numbers, and we can do a PZ7, which is juvenile literature. We can do PZ5, and so on. But PZ7, I think we'll find quite a listing. Okay, we can see that it doesn't actually tell you how many you found because it could probably go on for pages and pages. But I liked this just because I knew I was starting with a list and I wasn't giving it terms necessarily, and for me that was just kind of a fun way to browse and look through and maybe find some titles and just get a sense of what is available. And just a quick recap, try to keep the terms simple. Think of how a child would look maybe. So that's why I did just school, friendship. I did find works under substance abuse, fossils, refugees, migrants and immigrants, which are some of the things I'm interested in researching. And a reminder too that the full phrase seemed to work best: juvenile fiction, juvenile literature, young adult fiction, and then that great tip that the librarian shared with me, LCAC. I believe a lot of these will lead you to finding some great resources for your library. Thanks for joining me. I know this has been long. Good luck, and thanks for joining me.